Coolio. Welcome to the Standard Podcast team, where we raise the bar, rebuild the culture, and call out the lies or misconceptions that nobody else will. This isn't motivation. This is a movement. I'm Thomas Rowe, and I'm sitting down with my host, Aaron Charles. And today we have Katie Robinson, former associate head coach of women's swimming and diving at Stanford University, bringing over 15 years of collegiate coaching experience and a proven track record of developing high-performing student athletes. Katie's credentials, check this out, pretty amazing. Speak to excellence at the levels of competitive swimming. Selected to serve on Team USA's coaching staff twice, she has direct experience supporting athletes who have achieved world records and titles in international championships. Prior to Stanford, she served as director of swimming and diving at Northwestern University, where she led both men and women's programs and helped produce school records of both national and international success. But here's what makes Katie's story powerful. She understands the student-athlete journey from both sides. As a former 11-time All-American and team captain at the University of Texas, Katie has lived the pressure, the dedication, and the challenges that come with competing at elite levels. Her coaching philosophy emphasizes holistic development, building confidence, leadership, and resilience alongside elite performance. Katie is a strong advocate of empowering athletes to succeed both in sports and beyond. Understanding the true championship culture creates champions in life, not just in the pool. We're diving in, no pun intended there, we're diving into the truth behind what it really takes to build identity, discipline, and legacy in sports and in life. Katie, thank you so much for joining us. I'm super excited about today's episode.
Thank you. That was very generous of an introduction. So thank you, Tom.
Of course, you earned it. So as a former associate head coach at Stanford with over 15 years of collegiate coaching experience, and you've been selected twice for Team USA's coaching staff, in addition to all your personal accolades as an athlete, what does raising the standard mean to you in developing high-performing student athletes?
Yeah, I think when you talk about raising the standard, what can you control in that? It's you. You can't always control your competitors. So I think a lot of it has to do with showing up being the absolute best version that you have of yourself. And I think that stems from everything regarding like your values and having those aligned with driving action. And I think, when all of that lines up and our priorities are reflected in our action and what we're choosing to do and how hard we're pushing, I think that shows up as like raising the standard, because you're just showing up a little bit better, looking back, reflecting on where you've come and helping that be lessons towards where you're going.
Right on. And what do you think is the biggest lie or misconception that the culture of swimming has sold athletes about what it takes to achieve elite performance and develop as both a competitor and as a student athlete?
Yeah, this is an interesting question, because I think what I've seen lately is that sometimes people wrap up their entire identity and it being so tied to who they are in their sport. And I have seen that really make an athlete kind of crumble when it comes to college, and if they're not performing at a certain level that they had expected to. So I think actually being able to wrap your identity around all the pieces of you, not just your sport, I think that allows for a really healthy environment where you can push really hard in your sport, knowing that like your value isn't related to your outcomes that you're producing in your sport. And I've seen it done really well with some of literally the best, like Olympic gold medalists. I've seen them have an identity that's not just their sport. And now that doesn't mean that they're any less intense about like driving and pushing hard in their sport. But when they're away from their sport in their downtimes, they aren't just rehashing the practice over and over and over and getting a great value of themselves or getting a less value of themselves based on their performance in that practice. So, or in that meet or whatever it is, they get their value and their identification from other areas of their life, whether it be like art or music or who they are to the people that they love in their life. I think when you can understand that your identity and who you are is so much more than just what you do and what you've produced and what you've accomplished, it creates a really nice, healthy environment for being like awesome in sports and in other pieces of your life too.
That's so true. That's so true. Aaron and I deal with that a lot. And when we talk to athletes, especially at the pro and Olympic level, one athlete shared with us, swimming is what I do. It's not who I am. Right. And then who I am is this, and this. And Erin does a great job when she introduces herself. She says, first and foremost, I'm a mom. It's the hardest job I've ever loved. And she's accomplished so much. So it's great to hear that, the young athletes are now embracing who they are, not just their identity wrapped up in sports. You were an 11-time All-American and team captain at UT before becoming a coach. How did your experience as an elite student athlete shape your understanding of what athletes really need to succeed at the highest level?
I became a coach because my coach had such an awesome impact on my life, and it had so much less to do with how fast I swam for them. And it had a lot more to do about how they helped me through challenges, how they helped me grow in my most toughest moments. And yeah, so I just wanted to grow up and be somebody that could do that for other people in their lives. And I think having had that experience as an athlete, having a coach that meant so much to me, and then wanting to be that coach that was able to provide that safe space to help an athlete grow or navigate and journey through some really tough things, whether it had to do with that sport or had nothing to do with that sport. I think showing up for young people when they need it is the most empowering and impactful career you could possibly have. And so, yeah, I think that framed my philosophy as a coach as well. And looking at each athlete on the team as a person and not just a swimming machine, and learning or using really sport as a platform to teach some amazing life lessons that will help them be successful so much more beyond their sport, after their sport, when they're done, when they've hung up their suit, and who they are in a boardroom, or who they are when they show up for an interview, or who they are when somebody asks for their help. I think that those are the most impact I could possibly have on athletes' life.
Awesome. I love it. Before I turn it over to Aaron on segment 2, one of the questions I really like to dig into with athletes who have achieved great success like yourself, has the imposter syndrome ever made its way into your training?
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Wow. Tell us.
I mean, this is maybe another lie that I would love to bust here, is that everybody at every single level has doubts and has little voices in their head that are negative.
Wow.
And it's not about not having it. It's about how you navigate and have a stronger voice that tells that small, weak voice to be be quiet.
Right.
And I worked at Stanford University most recently, and we had Katie Ledecky come back and talk to all of our athletes right before the Olympic trials in 2024. And she said that even she had doubts, and she will win by half of half of an Olympic pool lane.
Right.
Trials, and yet she gets nervous at trials because it's it has to happen so that she can go on and perform at the Olympics, right? You have to earn your spot, right? And so it's just that sport create this really tight pressure cooker. So it's not that there are incredible people out there that just never feel that pressure and never feel the nerves. That's not the case.
Right.
Most everybody actually does feel the pressure and feel the nerves and feel that moment of doubt, or those words of doubt in your head. I like to say that you can transition that by just saying okay, how am I feeling? I'm feeling a little nervous. That must mean I care. And that's the thing. And it doesn't mean you're not prepared. That was our mind. Just because you're nervous or just because you think you don't belong, it doesn't mean that you this is your brain telling you lies, and you need to cut that short circuit and fill it with some really positive self-talk. And I love that part of coaching. That's super fun.
That's awesome. My dad, who is a great leader and mentor for me, said that imposter syndrome is a direct reflection of how unprepared you are to face the situation. He's like, son, you've done the work. Now let's get to work. And I was like, okay, it's easier said than done, Dad. I got to go compete. But I understood where he was coming from. We're going to turn it over. Segment 2, which is identity and legacy. Aaron, take it away.
Okay. Katie, thank you again for joining us. Super excited for this conversation today. So you're a former 11-time All-American, former associate head coach at Stanford, and a twice selected for Team USA's coaching staff. But beyond all the credentials and achievement, who is Katie Robinson? Who are you?
I am a small town girl. I grew up loving to combat assumptions. So if somebody looked at me, I'm like 5'4" in heels. So if somebody looks me up and down, they could easily count me out. And that was like my fire. That was I love to prove people wrong. And so if you think one thing about me, I'm going to work really hard to try and prove you wrong. So I'm like an athlete, but I also am smart. Like I graduated with a 3.9 GPA at the University of Texas. I'm a woman, but I also beat most of my boys, like my fellow peers who were boys in high school, with pull-up challenges. And I think, I'm really strong, but I have an incredible compassionate side, and I cry probably more often than I'd like to admit. And I love to lead and be strong in that way. But I also love to take workout classes and have somebody yell and tell me what to do. So I have these just things within me that I'm don't get too confident in thinking you know me, because I'll shift and try and I prove you wrong in other ways. So I don't know what that says about me, but it says that I'm a fighter, perhaps. I think that I grew up with a little bit of a chip on my shoulder trying to prove people wrong around me. And yeah, that's a little bit about who I am.
I love it. I'm a fellow small town girl. How small of a town did you grow up in?
Well, it was called Dillsboro, Indiana. Hey. And
hey.
I think we had more cows than people in our town. And I think our number was around 1,000 people that lived in my town.
Okay. We're pretty close. I grew up in Wyoming. I think we had 250 people in the town, and certainly we're outnumbered with lots more cows than people. So I think sometimes when you grow up in that environment too, you really have to be very, I don't even know the words I would use, but it really does form you into who you are. Because I have that kind of same fire. So as you were talking, I was I love it. Because it's there's this innate desire of I want to prove everybody, because everybody kind of knows you and has their opinion of you, I think, in a small town, wrong. And so it's yeah, you think you know me, you really don't know me.
Totally.
So I love it. That's awesome. So your coaching philosophy emphasizes holistic development, building confidence, leadership, and resiliency alongside elite performance. What does legacy beyond championships and records mean to you, especially someone developing the next generation of swimmers?
Yeah, there's a saying, I think it's people don't remember what you say or what you do, but they do remember how you make them feel. And that, to me, that's my truth. And I try my best to coach in that way. Now, when I was a younger coach, I don't know that I fully understood that. And I had some ups and downs that I had to navigate and redefine for myself how I want to be as a coach. And a lot of it is who you think society is trying to tell you what you should be like as a coach or as a person or whatever it is, right? And I was trying to follow that track a little bit too closely. So I think following the beat of your own drum is really important, and it helps set you up for success of who you really want to be. And that remembering that care for the people, coaching. It's been said that coaching is a business of caring for people. And I fully believe that, because again, the sport will come and go. They will at some point retire or leave the sport in some other way. And you want to help have made an impact that lasts way beyond the pool deck, the basketball court, the field, whatever it is.
I love that. That's so true. So you've coached athletes to world records and international titles, and you've helped produce school records at multiple programs. What separates athletes who achieve elite performance from those who develop into leaders and champions in life? How do you tell when just somebody's going to succeed And you see that translate both in the pool and out of the pool.
This is great because oh my gosh, I've coached at some pretty high level institutions from a academic standpoint with Northwestern and Stanford, even Tulane. And I've seen some incredibly high functioning individuals, and how it's like that executive function piece. It's how they show up with being organized, being on time, speaking eloquently. A lot of that is, I don't know how they got that way. I think a lot of it has to do with their upbringing with their parents, and also I think swimming, or I think in a lot of ways sport, helps provide, again, a platform. Whether they take advantage of that or not stands to, be tested at times. But I think, yeah, it's this executive functioning piece where they are just organized. They take initiative. They're like fearless in a lot of ways, where they approach people to introduce themselves. And that's not always easy and scary at times. But that just in and of itself, like having the confidence to go up and introduce yourself to somebody, that will get you 50% through life, I'm convinced. And so I think those are the kinds of people that I see, like, that go on and become CEOs, or, they're president of their board, and they're just like functioning at a very high level. It doesn't mean that they don't have challenges, or, again, that imposter syndrome that we spoke about, or the doubt. It just means that they have found a way to kind of push through that and get to the other side, where they know that they're worth it, or whatever it is that is their kind of mantra that they can like take and run with. But yeah, I would say that. And then, resilience, that's such a hot word these days, or at least it is for me. I think learning to like, I was listening to somebody who's in a startup, and they got told 29 times like no from, they were trying to get funding for their startup, but on the last time they finally got obviously it's the last time they got a yes. And then they have been like one of the top, startups. It's not even a startup now. But I think learning to handle no and being told no, and letting it teach you something, and not just blaming them that they don't understand, or, coming up with some other excuse as to why they said no. Like actually digging in and reflecting and trying to learn from a no, or a negative, whatever it was. Maybe it's a negative feedback that you got, like, okay, what can I learn from that? And then you take it and you apply it, and you make yourself better for the next day.
Yeah. I do love that word, resiliency, kind of stick-to-itiveness, and that ability to push through, to your point, that adversity. Like, if you really believe in yourself, your idea, with your business example, no is not an option. Taking that feedback to go, okay, why are these people saying no, and what do I have to do differently, I think is the golden nugget. And that's where I think we can dig in and learn more. I think we have such an opportunity to expand into that, versus feeling like somebody's against us. And so with that, because I think that's a huge opportunity for this next generation. And as a mom of 2 student athletes, I think it's really, I think that's where a lot of young athletes get stuck, is that negative, that constructive. I don't like calling it negative. It's constructive coaching.
Totally. I would love to change the language with you. Yeah. Sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
I totally agree. Yeah.
I know exactly but that's the most valuable. Those are the golden nuggets that are going to make you excel and become at that next level, is all those minor details that somebody's telling you because they want you to win. They want you to succeed. They're not telling you that because they want you to fail. They want you to be the winner. And so with that, what's one truth you wish every young swimmer or athlete, parent, and coach understood about developing elite performers while building character that lasts well beyond the sport?
I was actually talking with a good friend of mine who was a swimmer at Stanford a while ago, and we were talking about what it is that, like, how did we, in a way, like, from an outside standpoint, outside looking in, like, we look like we've performed super well for ourselves, and we feel very grateful for those opportunities, but we're kind of like, what was it about it ourselves that made us the 11-time All-American stat, And I think a couple things that we found to be true are that both of our parents didn't know anything about swimming and they remained ignorant about swimming and allowed us to really build our own value system around how do we self-motivate and how do we push ourselves. And so it's that like intrinsic motivation, like, and I think, and it's hard to say, like, because I don't think like just totally leaving a kid like totally unsupported in that way gets them there, but it's like allowing children to really grow that within themselves and nurture that with little touch points, I think is good. But I think like our parents didn't know anything. So they were only thing that my mom ever or my dad ever said was like, I'm proud of you. Good job. And even if it was like the worst and I'm crying, they're like hugging me. I'm really proud of you. I'm like, okay.
That's a good dad. I love it.
Yeah. And I think just being an ignorant parent when it comes to the actual sport is good because already they're getting tons of feedback from their coaches, or at least hopefully they're getting some feedback from their coaches. They don't need another voice in their ear trying to tell them what they think, even though that parent has maybe never done the sport, like, and maybe they're trying to read and like be helpful in that way. But I don't think that's actually helpful. I do think as a parent, the kid really wants you to show up as a parent, less like a coach. And that just means loving them unconditionally. And even in those moments when the kid is like, stop, it's like, this is like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, I think just showing up for that child. And again, so that helps that kid learn how to navigate those pitfalls and, the ebb and flow that comes with being an athlete. And that is what builds resilience. And that what makes them like super successful, again, within the sport, but also beyond.
I love it. Okay, parents, ignorance is bliss. Don't learn anything about your sport enough to cheer them on. But the best advice I've heard, but it's so true when you don't know what's going on as a parent, like, and you didn't play the sport, you can just clap, be excited, have a general idea of what's going on. But it's like, yeah, it's very freeing and it's freeing for the kid. I love that. That's awesome. Best thing I've heard in a long time. So I'm going to keep that one with me. I'm going to turn it back over to Thomas for segment 3.
Awesome. Thanks, Aaron. Katie, this is segment 3, advice across all stages. And this is one of my favorite ones. If you knew then what you know now type scenario. If you could sit down with yourself as a young swimmer at UT before you understood what coaching and developing others would really teach you, what advice would you give that version of Katie about competition, character, and preparation for life beyond swimming?
I think I went through a lot of my college career being terrified of like pain in training, being wrong, all of these, like, I just was afraid, I think, in a lot of ways. And so the advice I would love to give little Katie at Texas would be like, you don't need to be like, don't waste so much energy, mental energy, and like thought energy around like just being scared of like being wrong or again, the pain or even getting in trouble. Like I wish I could like pull that away so that little Katie could just go on and do amazing things. And, that speaks to me because I was thinking back about my time right after college. So I went right from swimming right into a coaching career, and I spent a year coaching. And that year, it was about in March timeframe of 2008. The Olympic trials were coming up, and I still had like cuts for the meet, even though I'd been done swimming for like a year and I hadn't done anything in the water for sure for a year. I'd stayed in shape in other ways, right? And I was like, maybe I want to enter in the meet because I really want to go. Like, it's such a cool experience. And I remember telling the head coach who I was working with, that I might be interested in putting my entry in for the Olympic trials. And he was like, don't just go, like actually get in the water and train. Like, one, if you want to be in this profession, don't fool yourself in front of all your potential like employers, from getting a job standpoint. So I trained for 3 months, and having coached for a year, my mindset going into each and every single one of those practices, and it was only 3 months time, I like sought out the challenge. And I think I mean, I went on to swim at Olympic trials and went a lifetime best time, faster than I'd ever swam after just 3 months of training. And I think that that has told me so clearly that wasting mental energy on being afraid is not worth your time.
Right.
and I think seeking out those challenges is will in so many ways help you grow exponentially in those moments when you're challenged. And so that would be definitely something I would love to tell myself.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's always worse in our mind than it is in reality. You've worked at Northwestern and Stanford, developing both the men and women's programs. What advice would you give to coaches about creating environments that build holistic excellence, not just fast swimmers, but strong leaders?
Yeah, I mean, so much about leadership is there's a new phrase out there called situational leadership. And I think because people are so complex and so different that treating each individual on your team as their own individual and learning what works for them and knowing that that's different than the person next to them, as much as you want to just have the easy leadership style where you just say the thing, in front of the whole group and everybody walks away with knowing that one thing. That's not the case. People hear it with different lenses. And so I think really taking the time to get to know your athletes I know that's impactful. And then learning how to best communicate with each person to let them know, one, that they matter, and two, that you're in it with them to help them achieve their goals. And three, that you just, beyond caring for them and wanting them to be successful, you also see and value them as a person outside of the school and sport kind of realm that we as coaches love to just kind of narrow into.
Sure. Now, you touched on it earlier about you and your colleague or one of your swim mates, that your parents didn't know much, so ignorance is bliss. What about those parents who live vicariously through their athletes? What should they know about supporting their athletes' development in ways that build character and prepare them for success beyond the sport?
Well, the reality is when you're over, what are the phrases, helicopter parent and all this, when you're over involved, it doesn't allow that athlete to grow their own engagement. And so I think because then it's almost like enabling inaction on the athlete's part. So instead, it doesn't allow for that athlete to take initiative, to have good communication lines between them and the coach directly. It doesn't allow them to also just be a team player, because sometimes that means not that in some ways that means, you take a sidestep so that your team can do really well, because maybe you're not the best person for that relay and maybe somebody else actually deserves that spot more than you. And learning how to take that in and let it fuel the fire for your own motivation to get better instead of trying to pick a fight with the coach of why that person was chosen, and I think that there's so many life lessons that can be learned, but if a parent is over involved, it doesn't allow that child to learn. And I think that would be a tragedy when it comes, because sport can teach so much. And yeah, I think it's almost like it's enabling poor behavior for that child. And so learning how to take a step back and encourage that, whatever it is, the growth mindset, helping them seek out the challenges as a good thing versus just trying to show that they're the best. I think little things like that can start to make a change for the better.
Awesome. With that, we're going to turn it over to Aaron for segment 4, which is the rapid fire round. Aaron, it's all yours.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie. So this is going to be, I start the sentence and you're just going to finish what I ask.
Oh boy, this is dangerous territory, Aaron.
This is so fun because you'll have people that really expound and think about it, or other people one word. So whatever floats your boat.
All right, we'll see.
So discipline equals
commitment.
Legacy equals
lasting impact.
Leadership equals
tough.
Faith equals
inner strength.
What's one thing that you would never compromise on?
getting sleep.
Love it. Rest up. I'm with you. I'm a beast if I don't sleep well. And if you could put a message on the billboard for young athletes about whatever they need to hear in today's day and age, what would your message be to them?
I think there's a lot of anxiety and worry out there. And so I heard this phrase recently and I love it. It's peace is joy at rest.
Ooh.
And I would put that on every billboard.
Nice.
I love it. Okay. I'm going to kick it back over to Thomas for segment 5.
Awesome. Katie, we're going to get into the closing segment. I just got a few more questions for you and let you get on with your day and your weekend. And at this point, I'd like to turn it over to our guest, and it's kind of an open floor. And before we wrap up, is there something we didn't touch on today that you feel swimmers, coaches, or parents need to hear about developing elite performance while building character and preparing for life beyond the pool?
Yeah, I think the one thing, and we've hit on it in some various kind of peripherally ways, but I do think it's worth saying that not every, environment is the perfect environment for your child. And maybe that athlete is getting coached by, the math teacher at that school, and that's what they have, and I would love to speak on this because, again, I'm a small town girl. I was taught by an English teacher at my high school, and I was still able to succeed and, find a path forward. And so I think that trying to optimize everything around your athlete, your child it's almost, that is telling the athlete that like everything has to be perfect for you to then succeed. And I think that is a lie that is not helping our youth today. I think that helping them navigate and challenge themselves in, not perfect situations is the start of like helping them build that character that will help them succeed later on. And so I think just lessening up the whole, like trying to optimize everything for the athlete. And I think that's worth something.
Got it. I'm a little bit older than you, and when I grew up, I had posters on my wall, and I always wanted to play in the NFL, but I had Bruce Jenner on my wall. Growing up, who was your idol, your sports idol that you wanted to emulate?
Oh, man. I mean, I grew up with Jenny Thompson having signed
Awesome.
the poster in my room, and so I always love to look up to like some really fast, strong swimmers, female swimmers too. Like it was important for me to like have somebody to look up to aspire to be. And so, I would say Jenny Thompson.
Oh, that's awesome. So it was a swimmer. It's so interesting when I ask like football players and they're like, oh, I had Muhammad Ali. And I was like, okay. Or somebody, a basketball player would say that, they had Jim Brown or something. It just, it's just really interesting that how some people have it outside their sport and you had it in your sport. Katie, where can people connect with you or follow your work, whether that's a website, an email, or your social media handles?
Yeah, I have. Oh my gosh. I would love for anybody to reach out. Email's the easy way, but also I'm on LinkedIn and I'm pretty active on that these days. And then I also use social media. I use Instagram as my main social media just for fun. Like you'll see me posting hikes, and I love rock climbing and my dog. So you'll see a fun side of me on the Instagram handle. Is there a way that I can share that? Do I just verbalize it now or should I?
Yeah, you could tell us. We're going to drop in the notes anyway. But if somebody's listening right now and they want to just jot it down, go ahead.
Yeah. So on Instagram, I'm coach.k.robinson.
Okay.
And you can follow me there. LinkedIn, it's just my name, Katie Robinson. I don't know how, because there's a lot of Katie Robinsons out there. I don't know how.
She's got a great hiking picture, if I remember your profile on LinkedIn correctly.
Well, I just recently changed it. I finally got shots. But it was a great hiking shot. Yeah.
I was like, I think that was in Utah.
Yeah. I now it's just a very, I would call it beige.
Okay.
But it's professional, I guess. So so LinkedIn, and then email is KANNR84@gmail.com.
Katie, I have an interesting, quirky question. I had a buddy of mine that played water polo at Brown, and he said every time he got near a pool and he would smell the chlorine, he'd start to get like, it's almost Pavlovian. Does that still happen to you?
Oh my gosh, yes. It is like a call. It's like a magnet. It just like calls you. You're like, oh, I need to go in that direction. Yeah, and you start like sweating a little bit. Yeah.
Right. That's exactly what he said. Because like this was in Santa Monica where, we would go to Santa Monica pool and we would get in there and he'd be like, dude, he's like, feel my hands, they're sweating. I'm like, dude, we're just going to swim laps. And he's like, you don't get it. I was like, all right. Katie, thank you so much for showing us what holistic development and championship coaching really looks like. And team, if this conversation hit you, we need you to do two things. One, share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. A young swimmer developing their character and performance, a coach building a championship culture, or a parent supporting their athletes' holistic growth. And two, follow Katie on Instagram at coach.k.robinson if you want to understand what it means to build confidence, leadership, and resilience alongside elite performance. Katie brings the Stanford and the Team USA experience with focus on developing complete champions on and off the field or out of the pool. And if you're an athlete, parent, or coach ready to raise the standard, reach out and find Aaron and I on blueprintbluechip.com. We help athletes build identity, discipline, and legacy that goes far beyond the game. If this episode has resonated with you, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It helps us reach more athletes, parents, and leaders who need to hear Katie's message. This is the Standard Podcast, and this movement only grows when we raise the standard together. Talent fades, but truth endures. Let's raise the bar, rebuild the culture, and become the standard. Katie, Aaron, you guys have a great rest of your day, great weekend. Team, we'll see you next time.